Trump tightened the security before the World Cup, and the left panicked because the safety of the biggest sporting event on the planet became a battle between law and disorder. On June 3, 2026, just a few days before the games kicked off in the United States, Canada, and Mexico, the Department of Homeland Security was put at the center of a tough hearing in the U.S. Senate. Markwayne Mullin, the head of the department, was pressed by Democratic senators about the role of ICE in the stadiums. The attempt was to portray it to the world as a fiasco before the first game, but what appeared was something else. Trump wants the stadium protected, the airport under control, the border guarded, and criminals without a comfort zone. What does the left want to hide? Why does ICE scare them so much? Why are they trying to turn security into a scandal? I'll tell you all about it in a moment. If you like this kind of straightforward, no-nonsense content, consider subscribing because we have videos like this every day. The hearing took place in Washington during a discussion about budget, immigration, and security. Democrats came prepared to target Mullin, aiming to push the idea that ICE's presence at the World Cup would drive away foreign visitors and tarnish the tournament. But the Trump administration is treating the World Cup as a national operation, not as an unprotected party. The event starts on June 11, 2026. There will be games in 16 cities in North America, with 11 American host cities. This means crowded airports, full hotels, international delegations, fans moving around, protests, and the risk of organized crime taking advantage of the confusion. Mullin made it clear in an interview with CBS that ICE will be part of the World Cup security structure, but not with the mission of carrying out mass arrests. His statement was straightforward. The agency is not going to take off its law enforcement uniform just because there are stadiums and international cameras. If there is a criminal, fraud, trafficking, or threat, the agents are still authorized to act. The left took that phrase and tried to turn it into fear-mongering aimed at fans. If an agent finds a threat on the way to the game, should he act or pretend he didn't see it, just to avoid bothering an activist? The Senate became the stage for this dispute because the city and sanctuary are trying to limit cooperation with federal immigration authorities. The Trump administration responded with a heavy threat. If local governments interfere with law enforcement, the processing of international flights in those locations could be put on the table. The left called this chaos. But Trump's logic is institutional pressure. A city can't want the benefit of receiving international flow, tourism, money, and federal infrastructure while trying to block the national authority responsible for border and immigration. The tension got stronger because Los Angeles, one of the American host cities, received a local guarantee that there would be no civil immigration enforcement at World Cup matches and events. This information was used to calm part of the public. But even there, the authorities acknowledged a federal presence in overall security and that the situation could change. Los Angeles will also host games involving Iran, which has a large Iranian community and a risk of protests. In other words, there is no World Cup protected by goodwill. There is a security operation with real risks, and Trump knows that any failure will be used against the United States. That's where Trump turns the game around. Security is not a popularity contest. Security is about preventing the problem from appearing when it's already too late. The left also tried to mix the World Cup with other crises to paint the government as out of control. They mentioned protests and fires, detention centers, cases involving immigrants, statements from the Department of Homeland Security, and court decisions. The goal was to get Mullin to say something that sounded like disobedience. He responded by saying that he will enforce the law and defend the Constitution. This bothers the Democrats because they want lower courts, mayors, and governors of sanctuary cities to block an entire federal policy. The crisis took on an international dimension with the pressure on FIFA. The Norwegian Federation supported an ethics complaint against Gianni Infantino because of the Peace Prize given to Donald Trump at the World Cup draw. The argument is that FIFA would have broken political neutrality. But the movement reveals how the World Cup became a battleground against Trump even before the first match. When the American president is recognized, they complain about politicization. When the American government increases security, they complain about intimidation. When federal agents get involved in the planning, they complain about fear. The standard isn't soccer, the standard is to wear down Trump in front of the world. The 1994 World Cup in the United States took place in a different global environment before the September 11 attacks, before cheap drones, and before digital warfare. The 2026 World Cup is different. It will be bigger, more spread out, more expensive, and more exposed. Major sporting events are no longer just about ceremony and television. They have become security operations, intelligence, flow control, document checks, defense against drones, and coordination between the federal government, states, and cities. Other nations have already understood this. Germany reinforced border controls during the 2024 Euro Cup and relied on Frontex for checks and detection of document fraud. France deployed tens of thousands of police officers and military personnel to protect the Paris Games with barriers and strict access control. Qatar put a complete framework in place for the 2022 World Cup with training and planning for crowds. When these nations do this, they call it preparation. When Trump does it, the left calls it a threat. Trump is not pretending that the Cup takes place in a perfect world. He sees the tournament as a showcase for the United States and also as a test of sovereignty. Trump wants to show that hosting the world doesn't mean giving up control. It's the government putting security at the center of the table, while the left tries to sell discipline as panic. I'm Milson Alves, an international affairs specialist, and my purpose is to keep you well informed with the truth every day. The news links are in the video description. Leave a like on this video, subscribe to the channel, and at the end, check out the comments so you can be even more engaged with the Milson Alves community.